Turn around.
Mm-hmm.
See when she starts playing it'll.
I see those owl eyes.
Well, for announcements, I'm not aware that there are any real announcements. So, other than if you read your newsletter, you'll see that Lynn's speaking next week, except she's not. I am. She and I switched. Nancy and I were supposed to be in Bald Head Island, but with Laura's colon surgery, they weren't able to go, and I'm not up to taking Nancy on a 800-mile trip by myself and all the steps and everything she'd have to make. So we got her to the point where she thought it was her idea to stay home. And so she will tell everybody she made the decision. And Laura's surgery was Thursday. It was major. It was like 4 hours long, but they said that the chemo had done a really good job of shrinking the tumor in the colon, and so it was very small, and took it out and resectioned her colon. She'll have which she doesn't like, colostomy bag for 7 weeks, and then that will be removed and everything should be fine. No more treatments or anything. So she came through it very well, so we're very happy about that.
Okay, I have kind of an announcement. This little booklet is the Quaker lecture, which Brent gave at yearly meeting, and they have copies of it, and I brought a number of them home. And if you are interested in receiving a copy of this, if you will text me or email, then I'll be glad to mail you a copy. If you're out of town, I'll be glad to give you, mail you a copy of the Quaker lecture.
It's perfect bedtime
Thank
reading.
you.
It's put Dave to sleep 3 times. That's his quote, not mine.
There is going to be some discussion about that, and I'm not sure whether Brent has more of an update than I do. I know Sean McConaughey is involved in helping to instigate that part of it.
Yeah, there's no real update yet, but we're talking about in September, doing a couple evenings over a couple weeks of 2 of the questions that were raised. Steve Mills suggested them based on the lecture, and the one was from the quote by Edgar Dunstan that opens the lecture about what good news do we have to share? What good news do Quakers have to share today? And the second one was this section on how we need to be for things instead of against all the time. So how can we say what we're for? How can we Quakers say what we're for these days? So we'll do 2 sessions of those, and depending on how many show up on Zoom, we'll either just have a general discussion about those topics and let people weigh in, or we'll do breakout rooms, on Zoom. So stay tuned for coming attractions.
It's well worth it.
The presentation was great, and I read the booklet as well, and it does have some extras in there that was not in the presentation, so.
Is the presentation available on YouTube or something?
Yes, it is. It's under Western Yearly Meeting. If you go to YouTube and type in Western Yearly Meeting, there'll be a list of their videos up there. So, yes, I wrote more than what I could say in the time allotted. So I started cutting things out, synthesizing them and moving along. Because I saw Wayne Carter starting to nod off, and I thought, well, all right, I'll keep moving. There any other joys or concerns to share before we go into the silence?
Well, Brandon has to have an MRI on his leg. He tore something, skateboarding, of course, and he may have to have surgery. And my joy is Drake's gone from Jazz 2 to Jazz 1. Don't know what it's called, but the band that sits down, he's promoted from that to the wind section, and he's still doing marching band. Wow.
That would be the concert band.
Concert band, okay. I keep forgetting what it is.
It was a delight this morning to be listening to Dan's grandchildren, one on the piano, one on the guitar, and one on a clarinet, playing hymns before they went to church. Just right here in our house. Yeah. So talented kids, such talented kids. That was 3 of the 6.
Well, I will have to say a tangential joy was when Norma started playing Trust and Obey. Nancy found some cassette tapes. Nancy, as she deteriorates, gets more into these organizing gigs, and that's what they said would happen. So she starts getting stuff out to organize it, which she can't do because she can barely read anymore, but she got all the CDs and cassette tapes out and was going to get them organized. Well, I had to end up doing it, but she found a tape from 1973 when I was in a large singing group, Christian singing group with a rhythm section and brass section, and 6 of us singers, and one of the songs on the tape was an updated version of Trust and Obey, very swinging with the brass and everything, sounded like something out of the Glenn Miller era. And I thought, oh my goodness. So as soon as I heard that song, I thought of that arrangement we used to sing, and it brought, and the goofy looking matching outfits we all wore back in the 70s, all that polyester. Oh gosh. I had hair. It was amazing.
Do you have anything?
That's also one of the songs that children were playing this morning.
Great. Yeah, I still have a cassette. I have one that converts it to MP3 so I can put it on my computer.
Terrific.
So I am not listening to it, but I'm converting it to listen to it sometime. It gives me the shivers.
It sounds like
live
it's
and-
open for wider distribution.
Yeah, live and in concert.
Oh, yeah, once it's digital, it'll go viral.
Yeah, we'll put it on YouTube.
There you
not- Well, Chip is our worship leader this morning, so let's hold these joys and our concerns. I'm sure there are many in God's love and light, and just center in silence, lift them to the divine for divine intervention and assistance as needed, and then Chip will lead as he feels led.
Good morning, friends, or as we say on the compound, hola, amigos. Drake is learning Spanish, and we're all learning it along with him. 2 things came to mind when I was doing my message. One, a lady at Western Yearly Meeting several years ago heard about my story of Noah from Sylvia, and she got me aside and said, I don't think Quakers laugh enough. So there is some humor in my message. Well, this is the first Sunday of the month of August, and my first thought was of Dan Berger and a message he gave on the first Sunday after he had gone to the Indiana State Fair. You see, he tried all kinds of food at the fair, some mild and some really spicy. His message that morning was about what if the words that came out of your mouth made your mouth feel nice or mild when you said something kind, but made your mouth burn when you said something hateful or cussed. That was my favorite message Dan gave. I miss Dan, and I miss his messages. Okay, on with my message for today. I'm so happy July is over. It all started with my message in July. I talked about movies that I thought you might enjoy that had something to do with the 4th of July. Now, there was one sentence in my message that set things to unravel. I said, I gave God the month off. The message was all about 3 movies, and I thought, I could do this on my own. Wrong. Not only was my message bad, but afterwards everything went downhill, and it went downhill really fast. Now, I had worries about family, friends, and pets, but in the midst of all that, my phone, computer, and my car broke down. I became so depressed, I felt I needed to go back and see a psychiatrist. But Troy said I couldn't go as they would keep me, and I would only be able to see family during visiting hours. I sat in my chair and talked to God about it all, and told him I was turning it all over to him. For starters, I needed to talk about my message, and we prayed. The next day I said, so what have you got for me? I turned on the TV, and there was Norah O'Donnell in the evening news. The first story came up was about the governor of Texas and how he was keeping people from crossing the river to get into Texas. He was having nothing to do with it, so he was putting up something people couldn't swim under and had to go to the deep end of the river to get around, with them their families. Barbed wire was put up, and if people did get across, they were thrown back into the river, even children. I looked over at God and said, "So this is what you have in mind?" Well, I guess I could do a comparison between the governor and Pharaoh that thought he could stop the Hebrews from crossing the Red Sea. And the Egyptian soldiers did throw babies in the Nile. And I could bring up an episode from young Shelton where Missy asked in Sunday school, if God had a plan for Moses, what was his plan for the babies that got thrown in the river? Yes, I could do that, but friends may think it's too political, and I might get a talking to by the clerk. What else have you got? I suggested maybe I could do a message, and perhaps the governor was afraid that if immigrants came in, they might do what the white Christians did to the Native Americans when we came here. No, still too political. A few days later, we tried again. Again, more news. This time we're in Florida. Seems the governor there wants to ban books and rewrite history. I said we could compare the book burning to the movie Fahrenheit 451, a 1966 movie based on a novel by Ray Bradbury. In the movie, all books are burned. Books burn at the temperature of 451 degrees Fahrenheit. The people who loved books and reading a book, that was to say the people who loved books became books. That is to say, each person memorized a book so that someday when it was legal to print books again, they would have the information. I could ask friends, what book would you be? Oh yes, and this governor said slavery was a kind of a jobs program where you learned a trade and would help you improve your lives. There was no mention of selling children. And he said if he became president one day, he would start cutting throats. No, can't go there, not very Christian. We need to regroup and try again another day. A few days later, I came home from meeting and turned on the TV. It was in the middle of a 1953 Harry Belafonte movie called Bright Road. It also starred Dorothy Dandridge. And this kid asked the teacher, Dorothy, what color is God? Well, the only picture I have seen of God was painted by Michelangelo. He's white, has long white hair and a long beard, and he kind of looks like a thin Santa Claus. I looked over to God and said, I would ask to see you, but we know that wouldn't turn out well, and I have no desire to be a salt block for the deer. Now, on the morning news, they were talking about how it has been the hottest July ever, and this may be our coolest summer ever. Perhaps I could talk about climate change and what we could do about it. Never mind. At the last meeting that I belonged to, a weighty Quaker stood up and said climate change was fake news, and that every so often the world goes through a change, and it's quite normal. Okay, this isn't working, and I'm not here to offend anyone. I just need to do a message. God, I will get back with you. A few days later, it came to me. I do not like change of any kind. I do not like it when new people are on the morning news. I do not like changing things in my house. I do not like learning new things and new equipment. I do not like it here and there. I do not like it anywhere. I have a new phone, a new computer, and I fixed my old car because I didn't want to get used to having to drive a new one. There is my message. I hate change. Of course, being a song and dance man, I immediately thought of the song I Hate Men from the musical version of the William Shakespeare's Taming of the Shrew, and the conflict on and off stage between show director, producer, and stars. Music and lyrics by our own Cole Porter. The stage production was premiered on Broadway in 1948, and later a film version was made in 1953. Catherine, the shrew, sings how she hates men, and I could change the words so that it wouldn't be men, but change. And I thought my message that way. I hate changes. I can't abide them even now and then. Well, you get the idea. I was all set and ready to go, and suddenly, as I was sitting watching Brent give his lecture at the Western Yearly Meeting via Zoom and sipping on my coffee, he says, "Only positive messages." What? Yes, I do remember Brent telling me it was better for me to say, "I protest for peace," than I say protest against war. Well, that just blew my message right out of the water. Now what? Oh God, we need a new plan, back to the drawing board. I was out on my porch having coffee when my son came over from next door. We talked for a while, and then he asked what my message was going to be. I said, well, it was going to be how I hate changes, but I am not sure what it's going to be now. Brandon asked me, why do you hate changes? I told him I just do. He told me that didn't make any sense, since every time an election comes up, you get us all in the car, you tell us how to vote, we go down, we do as we're told. Lots of times you talk about how change is good, and we need a new person in office or a new person on a board, and we need change. So aren't you saying change is good or can be good? Of course, Brandon was right. Yes, I did tell everyone on the compound how to vote, and yes, I do look forward to a good change on a board or an office. Interesting how your child can become the teacher. School started back up and my life got in order. The alarm clock goes off at 6 and everything run like clockwork. Talk to God and the cats, drink coffee, watch the news, get favorite grandson up at 6:20 and then feed the critters and Troy's cats, waiting for the bus at 7:50, walking Brandon's dogs at 10, 1, and 3. Everything has its time. It's interesting just getting up at 6 like normal before summer, vacation, got my life back into order. There's band, there's meetings, and there's work around the house, all timed. And at 8 o'clock, I take my nighttime meds and I'm asleep by 9. In 2 days, my depression was pretty much ended. I was back in my routine. What a difference that made. Being in a better mood, I was able to rethink my message for today. Now, as Steve Mills has told me, your message was good, but it sure did take you a long time to get to the point. Steve, they're called Aunt Betty stories. So today I'm going to talk about 1, don't let God go on vacation, and 2, embrace change. I do talk to God every day, in fact several times a day. He is there on my living room sofa anytime I need to talk. I can sit down in my chair and look across the room and I know God is there. I don't need to go inside a beautiful building or have someone pass the message on. He is always there in my living room when I need or want to talk. That is a great comfort for me. I know my idea wouldn't work for everyone, just like being in a routine would not work for others. I like my friend Kathy Bond once told me, not everybody thinks like you do, Chippy, but it works for me. As for change, yes, I understand that in many cases change is necessary. Look at all the people and animals that had to make change to survive. Making change doesn't have to be bad. Sure, it may be challenging, but in most cases it can be for the good. So you have to learn how to do something new or adjust to a new environment, have a new boss, or try to eat something new. Just give it a try and trust in God. Now for me, I am proud to say this old dog was able to learn some new things. I love my new phone. I know how to text. My phone even takes pictures. My favorite grandson, Drake, is teaching me something new about it every day. My Apple computer is a work in progress. I like the fact that it is wireless. There is no tower taking up space on my desk, and there are no wires to get tangled up in. However, everything, and I mean everything, is different from my old computer. And that I'm really having to work hard to remember all the new things. But like my phone, I'm sure I will love it someday. Someday. Now, before I close, I need to say that I watched one of our message videos, and when Norma played the closing song, the owl zoomed in on me. It was not a good look. So when we go into quiet time, I'm going to move because, Mr. DeBille, I'm not ready for my close-up. Now, there is one other thing that came up when God and I were watching TV, and I didn't talk about it. So perhaps we might contemplate this as we go into our quiet time. Why can't we wear white after Labor Day? May the light of God surround you. May the love of God enfold you. May the power of God protect you. And may the presence of God watch over you. For wherever you are, God is.
The last hymn is a little less familiar than Trust and Obey was at the beginning, so I'm going to read through the first verse and the refrain of the song, I Know Who Holds Tomorrow. I don't know about tomorrow. I just live from day to day. I don't borrow from its sunshine, for its skies may turn to gray. I don't worry over the future, for I know what Jesus said, and today I'll walk beside him, for he knows what is ahead. Many things about tomorrow I don't seem to understand, but I know who holds tomorrow, and I know who holds my hand. Thank you, Norma and Chip. We'll now continue with our more on program worship. We know some folks have to leave, but and we wish you Godspeed. And the rest of us will just continue in our period of silence a while longer.
I gotta move, I got the lead.
recently I heard a radio program where they talked about how this gentleman had kept a tub of microorganisms, from the ocean for a number of years and observed it, and they kept observing it and separated it out and had different tubs from the same water, and they all came out with different outcomes, different sets of organisms and different amounts and all the rest of it. And one of the thoughts was that arose was that maybe there's just an element of randomness in how it all turns out. Maybe it just is what it is. We're in a tub. Who knows how it turns out? And I thought about it because, I always like to think God has a plan and the rest of it. But I'm beginning to think that maybe I'm reminded that it's not the outcome that's God's plan. It's the manner of our being. That we need, that, for example, I'm so wound up about whether or not the planet survives or humans survive on the planet that I'm not really focused on how do we achieve that. And maybe God would, God's idea is that whatever happens, we should be loving to each other to the end.
If all hearts are clear, we'll close morning worship.
Good to see
Good to
everyone. I hope you're feeling better, Sylvia.
Thank you. I'll get over it pretty quick, I think.
Well,
We all
take care.
pray so.
Take care,
Yeah.
friends, and hope to see you next week.
Okay,
Thank you.
Jonathan, I really appreciated your, oh, he's gone.